Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Fall is in the air and it's going to freeze soon, which will end the growing season. Today, we're going to talk about moving houseplants back indoors and getting the garden ready for its winter break. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Lori Williams. Ms. Lori is a master gardener right here in Shelby County, and Dr. Kelly is here. Dr. Kelly is a horticulture specialist with Mississippi State University Extension. Thanks for joining me, ladies.
It's good to be back.
Nice to be here.
All right, so we got to get those houseplants ready to come from outdoors to indoors. So how do we do that, Ms. Lori?
Well, the first thing I do when it's about time to start looking and inspecting for bugs. You don't have to bring them in right now, but when they start talking about frost, you need to get any tropical plants indoors. They will not tolerate that. But I've started at home kind of looking underneath my leaves and just inspecting them for the different kinds of pests that'll get in there. There's kind of 4 disasters that can be on houseplants of pests.
Okay.
4
disasters, okay.
Mealybugs, scale, spider mites, and whiteflies.
Yes.
Those seem to be the ones that are the indoor one. And once you bring them in and it's nice and warm and there's no what am I trying to say, predators, they blow up. And so inside it can really be a problem. So I've started spraying mine with neem oil and a light horticultural oil because I found on my inspection, I found scale and whiteflies. So I'm going to start spraying them now. And if you're using biological controls, you kind of have to do them often. So it's time to start now if you want to bring them in before frost.
So start now.
Okay. And so when they start talking about nights getting down into the 40s, it's time to bring them in.
About time?
Yeah, because you never know when that first night of frost is going to come.
Okay. So will the plants survive in an unheated garage? Which is a typical question we actually get.
Some of them will, especially the ones that are a little bit hardier, gardenias, those kind of things. But now if you've got a real tender tropical, unheated garage might not be the best place. And they also need to have light. People want to poke them back in the corner, and they, plants don't grow in a cave. They just don't grow in a cave. They need some natural light. And so some of them will, but if it's something that's very dear to your heart, you might want to go ahead and bring it in the house where it's got heat.
Okay. Wow, you're right. Okay. Is now a good time to start cutting them back, though?
Not really.
Not really.
Sometimes you have to just to bring them in the house. I've got a ficus tree that I've had since 1982.
Oh my goodness.
And so it gets a haircut, a pretty hefty haircut every year when I bring it in. I have to get it into my sunroom.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
But now if you cut things back, they're going to send out a flush of growth, and because they're going to get less light, it's going to be long, leggy growth, and it's not going to be attractive. It's better to cut them back in the spring. But again, you may have to just to do insect control and those kind of things.
Okay.
Try to be judicious with it.
Try to be judicious. 1982? Wow. That's a pretty good size ficus.
I've had that ficus tree longer than some of my friends.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a long time. Okay, so how do I revive a poorly performing plant? I'm pretty sure a lot of folks want to know about that.
First thing I would do is knock it out of the pot and see what's going on with the roots. It could be root rot, or it could be, you could have things living in there. Sometimes ants will move in.
Right.
And so a lot of times I'll go up and kind of kick my pots before I start messing with them, and the ants will get irritated enough they'll come out.
Right.
If you do have an ant nest in a tropical plant pot outdoors, just water it. Water it, water it, water it. They'll get irritated enough they will move someplace else. Just make sure they're not moving into your next houseplant's pot.
That's right.
And I also poke around for toads. I've been known to bring a toad into the house before too, because they'll be up underneath that soil.
Or the little tree frogs.
Tree frogs, yes.
Yeah, and the little lizards. The little
flat on my husband's forehead when he was sitting in the living room one day.
Oh boy.
That would scare you. Okay. So make sure you check those houseplants when you're bringing them indoors.
And then it may need to be repotted. Plants need to be repotted about every 2 years. That soil just tends to kind of go away. And so check the roots first and maybe repot it. If it's not full of roots in that pot, it's better to do that in the spring as well, because you're going to stimulate a bunch of growth.
Okay. And when we say repot, we're going up to the next pot size, right?
Either divide the plant up into smaller plants, or if you want to keep that whole plant together, then at least an inch on either side, so 2 inches bigger.
Okay. Now what about fertilizer? fertilizing once we bring them back in. Do we need to do that? You need to worry about that?
Best probably not to. You don't want to stimulate a bunch of green growth because, again, it's going to be reaching for sunlight and they'll get long and leggy. Better to fertilize March through October with tropical plants.
Through October. Okay. And I guess we definitely need to probably water. So you can actually, could you water them outdoors before you really start bringing them indoors?
It makes it messier and it makes them heavier, but I do it because that's going to be the last really good watering they get. When you're watering with a watering can, it's not going to be like watering with that rose on the end of your water wand.
Okay. Yeah. I guess that makes sense.
I would go ahead and then you get your workout when you're bringing them in that way.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it would make it heavier, but yeah, you get that last good watering.
And you can also get the dust off of them and the cobwebs by watering them really well.
Okay. All right. Now what about when they're indoors? How would you, get the dust off the leaves then?
I don't. They just get dusty.
So they just get dusty. Okay.
I've got a lot of houseplants to be sitting there wiping them off. But if you only have a couple, you can actually take just a damp paper towel and wipe it because that is how it gets its food. I mean, it's its photosynthesis, and the more dust you've got on it, the less it can feed itself. But there's a leaf shine that you can use on them.
Yeah,
but again, I've got like 100 houseplants. They're not going to get shined at my house.
Don't have quite the time, right?
No.
Okay. Now, did you have something you wanted to show us about your?
Well, this one I call an indicator plant, and it's a spathiphyllum, and what it does is it will absolutely wilt when it needs water. So it tells me it's time to get up off my tuchus and water my plants. But it doesn't die right away. It'll just kind of hang over the edge of its pot, and so I call it an indicator plant. Good house plant, will do well with low light, hard to kill. It's a good starter plant if someone's looking for something.
And I always see that, in somebody's home. Yeah, a good starter plant right there.
Yeah. And this one is a Tradescantia. And what I wanted to point out about it is it's got hair on its leaves. And as a general rule, that means it's going to need less water because that's its natural defense against sun pulling all of the water out of its leaves.
Less
water. So I water that at home probably once every 2 weeks and maybe even once a month in the middle of the winter when I bring it in.
So do you wait until the soil is completely dried out?
For that one, pretty much. Yeah, the other ones you want to wait until it's about down to your first knuckle. If you poke your finger in, if it's dry at the end of your fingertip, then you want to give it some water. And then this one I brought is the pregnant onion plant.
Yeah,
it's just
let's
kind
talk
of cool.
about that one. Yeah,
it's not a beautiful plant by any stretch of the imagination, and hopefully they can get a close-up of this, but it's got little bulblets that come out underneath this skin. And so you can see them, after a while, they'll just pop off, and that will grow a whole plant. And so they're kind of slow growing. And again, it's not a beautiful thing, but it's sort of a novelty. It's kind of fun to have around. Kids like it a lot.
Conversation
Piece,
yeah.
That's right.
How slow of a grower?
It's fairly slow, but you can see how long this foliage will get, and it'll get, if it's taken good care of. This one, it was in a greenhouse and was getting bumped around a lot, but the foliage will get 4 or 5 feet long if it's happy. They get pretty good sized.
Okay, all right, and I see you have some perlite, right?
Perlite, yeah. What I was going to say is that you don't always have to bring every plant in. Sometimes you can just take cuttings off of them. This is Nobutulon. It's called flowering maple, and it's not a maple at all, but it's got leaves that look like maple leaves. And then it does have flowers on it, which are very pretty. You have to get kind of up close and personal to enjoy them because they sort of nod and hang down. But what you can do instead of digging that plant up and bringing in all that soil and stuff is just take a cutting, and I'll put 7 or 8 of these in a pot and then just let the other plant die. Let frost kill it. It's the same plant, so if you've got sentimental value to it, it's, it's still the same plant. Reduce a little bit of the leaves just because there's not roots to pull that up. And then you can put it in your rooting hormone powder and then just poke it in perlite. You can use coarse sand, or you can use soilless potting mix. That's what I used to use in the greenhouse. It doesn't have bark in it. And so it's a seed mix rather than actually a potting soil because there's no bark in it. But you can just stick them in. I'll fill that whole pot and then put a little mini greenhouse on it with a Ziploc baggie and keep it out of direct sunlight. It will cook them until it gets some roots on it, and then you can tell, but you just tug on it and it'll have resistance, and that means it's got some roots on it. And then that next spring, I'll just stick that whole thing back out in my garden.
And it works.
And it works pretty well.
How about
that way you're not bringing in all those bugs.
Yeah, because you definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah. Once they've been outside, they can be kind of buggy.
Which is why scouting is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to inspect your plant material before you bring them indoors.
Also brought a loop.
Yes.
Yeah. You can get a jeweler's loop, or these are through any science thing. And what you do is you just look for varmints and critters. Spider mites are hard to see. And so with this, you can see them, or you can take a piece of white paper, hold it underneath there, hit it, and you'll see little black spots on there. And another thing you can look for is that honeydew, stickiness on the leaves. That's how I knew I had a scale problem, was because my leaves were sticky. And last year, I had enough of a problem that my floor was actually sticky, so I had to bring out the big guns for that.
And white flies are easy too. You
just kind of puff up,
white
make a cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, so yes, that's good. You have the alcohol here.
That is for sterilizing your
That's for
pruners.
sterile, yeah. Okay,
Before
make
you
sure you
go
do that.
from plant to plant, you definitely need to sterilize your pruners, because anything that's wrong with this plant you can bring over here.
right.
Bug eggs, all that kind of stuff. So even if you only had scale on one plant, if you're not careful, you can end up with it all over.
Okay. Well, Ms. Lori, we thank you much for the information. These master gardeners are good, aren't they?
Yeah.
All right, thanks much. There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Dr. Kelly, let's get our garden ready for the fall.
Let's.
So what do you want to start with that?
Well, I tell you what, when it gets this time of year, you know, when everything is pretty well fried and you're all frazzled, most gardeners are sort of sick at looking at their half-dead, dried-up plants, and they're thinking, oh my goodness, what can I do to make sure that, you know, next spring will be pretty, and I'm going to kind of clean up some things and make it look presentable maybe for the holidays, you know. So there are some things you can do to tidy up, as I call it, the fall chores. But I think it's important to remember that sometimes we go a little overboard with tidying up. You know, we rake up all the leaves, bag them up, put them on the curb, we get all the little twigs and branches, and you know, that's gardener's gold.
That's
you
right.
know, you can, what I like to do in my own yard is if the leaves are not falling on my turf, you know, which is not a good thing to leave the leaves on the turf over winter, you know, the warm season, or even on your fescue.
Right.
You know, you really want to get the leaves off of that because that deprives the grass of the light. And so, and then mat with, you know, water, especially big broadleaf, you know, deciduous trees. So what you need to do is get the leaves off of that part. But for the rest of the beds and the rest of the areas, I really, you know, I mean, leaves and twigs and branches and other kind of little garden debris like that, that's nature's mulch.
Yeah, it's organic material.
Yeah, relax, you know? Sit on the porch and watch the leaves fall and don't worry about it. Besides, if you live in a windy place, maybe they'll all blow over into your neighbor's yard, right? And then you can say, oh, there went my leaves, you know? But then if he rakes them up, so you're still losing out. You need to really, seriously, you know, try to use the leaves and the other kind of debris like that you can to mulch back. Let things, you know, and mulch, I'm gonna tell you what, if you want your garden to look like you have put some effort into it, a light smear of mulch, just a smear. You don't have to go get 5 tons of it. Just put a little nice layer of mulch on things, clean up the plants that have pretty much done their thing, like our summer annuals. Go ahead and pull those dudes out. And your garden centers now are loaded with pansies and other fall plant mums, the ornamental cabbage and kale, and you can sow like the red mustards and lettuces, you know, things like that that really look good in the fall. I mean, this is the time to be doing that. And if you think, well, gosh, I could just spend a ton of money, you know, planting everything in all the areas that you had your maybe summer annuals, you don't really have to do that. Kind of look at, again, the mulch, and then look at areas in the garden that you want a real focal point. You know, go in the house, look out the windows. You know, what do you see? Right. So if you're looking at your dining room table and you look out the window, you know, maybe that's where you want to put that nice grouping of mums or pansies, or even put some container plants out there. Put the things in containers so you can get some height, you know, combinations, and just do focal points throughout the garden. Okay. You know, where people look or where the focus needs to be, maybe off your patio. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. You know, light smear mulch, clean up the plants that look bad, kind of stay away from doing a whole lot of pruning. You know, obviously the pruning you can do any time of year is if you have a diseased or broken, or a branch is just, you know, it's in the way. Right. It's poking you in the eye every time you go out to your car. So, you know, you can do that kind of pruning anytime. But if you're doing maintenance kind of pruning, you really don't want to do that this time of year. And the reason is that, and I've seen this happen actually, that what happens when you prune, you're stimulating growth. Sure. That's what pruning does. It stimulates growth. So sometimes if you wait late in the summer, you're going to get really new tender growth, and if we get an early hard freeze, it's just going to kill that stuff back. And then you got to prune again.
That's right.
You know, so hold off on the pruning until late in, in the early spring, or if you've got spring bloomers, you don't want to prune in the early spring either. But anyway, your evergreens that flowering is not such a big deal, that you would prune those in the spring, right before they come out, the big flush. But yeah, there's a lot of things we can do to spruce up our garden, and we need to kind of do it with a little bit of restraint, I think, sometimes.
I think so.
Because if you leave those seed heads, sometimes, you're providing some, as some of the people say, structure for the winter garden. You're just don't cut everything to the ground. The old spent perennials and flower heads. You leave the purple coneflower seed heads, the rudbeckia seed heads, and some of the ornamental grasses. Obviously, their big season is the fall, when you've got those pretty plumes, flower plumes that come up. So you don't want to cut all that off. You get the motion of the wind, blowing the grass. So that's always a good thing in the winter garden.
The beautiful color, though, the nice fall color.
Sure, yeah. And you're also not just providing some structure and some kind of interest to the winter garden, you're providing some cover and food source for some of our wildlife, some of the birds and some of the other wildlife. So, you might even sometimes leave a part of your lawn and just let it kind of grow and see what happens. It's kind of interesting sometimes what will be there. Okay. You don't want to leave that in your front yard, though.
No, we might need to do that for the backyard.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, leave that for the backyard. Leave that for the backyard. Yeah.
All right, Doc, now can we get to the potpourri? Well, we have a little time left.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we definitely want to hear about that.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention too. Fall is a good time too to assess the garden.
Sure.
Go out with your pad and your pencil and say, okay, well, what worked, what didn't, what do I need to do different,
right.
And then make plans. It's a good time to plan. Okay. And look at, say, okay, yeah, this is a good thing. This is not. I'm not going to do this again.
Okay.
So it's a good time to kind of inventory and do that. But one thing, if you're going out cleaning up and some of the plants are going to get nipped, and they're going to be gone. So what I like to encourage people to do sometimes is, if you've got an old bowl of potpourri in the house, and it's all dusty like her plants, so you look at it and you go, oh, it doesn't even smell anymore. What am I going to do with this stuff? So what I do is I take what I like out of that old bowl of potpourri, and then I just go out in my garden, which is what I did this morning. And I just take, different colored little foliage, and this is an artemisia. Some of my zinnias, they will dry. Now, obviously, this stuff needs to be set somewhere and sort of dried.
Right.
And there's another artemisia, the hardy azuratum. Some of my pods, that's from my Siberian iris. This is some of my anise and here's my coneflower. So you just go through and here's the old hydrangea, celosia. I mean, there's all kind of stuff in here that you can go through your garden. This is the old hardy orange. It's very aromatic. So you just go through and you just pick a bunch of things, or, as you're cleaning up, throw some stuff in a little basket. And then this is the interesting thing, when you look at potpourri in bags, a lot of times there's a lot of wood shavings in there, and you think, well, what's that about? You got leaves and other things in there, and you think, what's the wood shaving? So I got to look at that. I said, well, that's where the scent is. It's cellulose. Wood is very fibrous and absorbent. So that's the fixative that holds the essential oils that they use in these commercial potpourris. So I thought, well, what can I use that I can put my essential oil in that will hold the scent? And I thought of pet bedding.
How about that?
Red cedar pet bedding. It smells good. It's cheap. You buy it by the bale. That'll make a lot of potpourri, folks. And then you take that, and you put it in a fruit jar, add your essential oil in there. The wood shavings will absorb that over time. And this has been in here 3 years, and it still smells wonderfully well. This is cinnamon and orange. And you get the different oils for whatever scent you want, and that's the most expensive part. Essential oils are very expensive, $7 or $8. And then you use that and put it in your potpourri. And that does it.
How about that?
Cheap.
Cheap.
Recycle plant material.
It's good, though.
There you go.
Cheap is good.
Cheap is good. Yeah, and bag it up and give it for Christmas presents.
How about that? Nice holiday gifts.
Yeah.
Guess what Chris is getting for Christmas this year?
Yeah. Here you go. There you go.
How about that? I think I can handle that. Thanks, Doc. We appreciate that information. This is good. All right, here's our Q&A session. Miss Laura, you help us out now, okay? Here's our first question. I have 3 Bradford pears close to the house. should I cut them down? And this is from Miss Lisa. So, Lori, should she cut them down? What do you think?
One cut. Yeah.
One cut?
Yeah, one big
one
cut.
pruning
That's
cut
exactly.
at the bottom?
That's what Chris and I were saying. We said, yeah, cut them all down.
Wow.
Just
So
cut them all down. Yeah,
They've
they're
really become invasive. I mean, they're a problem out in the woods now. And
Yeah.
I don't think they realized that when they were, when we were planting them all over the city, and now they're taking over.
Yeah.
Drive down to Holly Springs, it's horrible.
Yeah.
What you see along the woodland.
Yeah,
edge.
if it's definitely too close to the house, there's a lot of problems that can cause. You know, getting too much moisture, mildew, whatever on the
Right.
house, and they're getting in under the eaves or stuff. So yeah, I'd say just cut them right to the ground. One cut, like
One
she
cut,
said.
one
yeah.
pruning cut. Yeah. And especially the thing splits and it's by the house,
Yeah.
of course, it will split.
They're totally
Laying on
overplanted.
the car,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, so your car, your house, and things like that. So that's what happens when you have a monoculture of plants.
Yep.
You see the Bradford pears everywhere.
Well, and they are beautiful. I mean, most people can't,
They are
nice fall color and all that, but
Yeah.
it's going to blow up one of these days and just start dropping branches.
All right, so there you have it, Miss Lisa. One cut at the bottom. All right, so here's our next question. The neighborhood cat is using my flower beds as a litter box. Are there mulches or plants that will keep them out? So what do y'all think about that one? The neighborhood cat is just hanging out.
It's the neighborhood cat.
the neighborhood cat.
Oh,
Oh boy. So are there any mulches or anything we could put down to maybe deter?
rocks,
Rocks,
pebbles.
yeah.
Yeah, that would stop it.
Yeah.
But you can plant a total cover of plants, so then there's not exposed soil. Just add enough plants that there's not an open area for them to dig. Chicken wire, would be something I would not use very much because it's so ugly.
And then you got to deal with it if you've got weeds. and-
Right,
Yeah, that's
right.
exactly right.
Well,
So
would red pepper flakes work? I'd heard that that's.
I think that's temporary.
Just every time it
it's
rained,
just sort
probably
of
you'd have to
it's
Yeah,
just
rain
sort
will
of a
wear it out.
temporary
Yeah.
thing. And there are repellents.
There's some repellents out
Yeah,
there.
there's some repellents for dogs, cats, and all those things. But it's the same thing,
Yeah, the weather.
As soon as it rains or whatever, they're
Just knock it out.
gone, and you got to reapply. And it's sort of a territorial thing as well. So what you can do, and I know this is probably not a very fun thing to do, but you can dig out all the little things they leave behind and try to take some of that soil, because the scent is what brings them back
That's right.
again and
That's right.
again. So if you get rid of all of that, then that's going to, make it less likely.
Encourage them to go.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
come
go
back.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other neighbor's house, right?
There you
the
go.
other neighbor.
Yeah, with
there's a
all the
neighborhood
leaves
cat.
that blow out of your garden.
All right, so neighborhood cat. Okay, here's our next question. My liriope is dying. It is turning yellow. What may be causing that? Liriope usually has a problem with Phothothera root rot. We've gotten this question a few times this summer. Usually the person has an irrigation system, they leave it on too long, what have you.
Or water
and it's
stands
just sitting
and-
there, poorly drained soils, and it's just, the roots are just sitting there. And then over time, you will start to see those leaves yellow up. And if you go in there, you try to pull them out, it comes right out of the ground.
Yeah, no roots.
No roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, just rotted.
So try to fix your drainage
drainage.
problem and
Right.
replant your monkey grass.
Yeah, fix your drainage, because if you try to use some of those fungicides, they're very expensive.
Yeah.
For the homeowner.
And then it's not going to fix it,
But it's not
because
gonna
if
fix
there's
it. Right.
drainage problem,
That's right.
it's still going
Next
to be
batch,
there.
yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So it's not going to even fix the
yeah.
problem. So yeah, drainage is an issue. Phothothera root rot is what is causing that. Okay, here's our next question. What caused my cucumber vines to suddenly wilt and die? Wilt and die. What are we thinking about that one?
Bacterial wilt would be my
Bacterial
first
wilt
best
is
guess.
The first thing I thought about.
Yeah, when he said there's no yellowing, there's no anything, they just begin to wilt and then they
wilt
die.
and die.
That sounds like bacterial wilt, which is a horrible disease to try to control, because it's spread by cucumber beetles.
Yep.
And you need to control the cucumber beetles, and you need to try to find resistant varieties. Because some varieties are much more prone to getting it than others. So try to find resistant varieties, and be sure early in the season, gardening season, start controlling those cucumber beetles.
You got to scout.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
scout. And if you have that old debris, sitting around in your
From
vegetable
last
garden,
year,
you
yeah,
need to get
clean
that
all
out of there,
that
'cause
up.
they overwinter. When that
Right.
debris, of course.
Yep.
But it's either the spotted cucumber beetle or there's a striped cucumber beetle.
Yeah.
And they actually have this bacterium in their gut. So when they get active and they start eating, that's how they spread it.
Yeah.
Mouth parts. So they're spreading it. But you know what? If your cucumbers are relatively healthy, it can actually withstand some of the damage.
Yeah.
From the eating.
Yeah, I've heard that
Yeah.
too, that can happen.
It can
Sometimes
happen.
it can be just the lower leaves, because
Right.
I think it starts out on the lower leaves
It does,
and then
and then it just goes up. Mhm.
progressives or the younger, the older leaves.
Yeah, so if it's
So it can be a problem.
pretty good plant, it may be able to
Yeah.
withstand it, but over time, yeah, if it just wilts and dies, yeah, bacteria will. Okay.
Bad thing.
Bad thing. All right, Ms. Lori, Dr. Kelly, we're out of time. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us a letter or an email with your gardening questions. Send your email to familyplot@wkno.org. The mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next time for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.